Yeah.
The AP writes it has obtained an internal timeline prepared for U.S. officials, which reportedly sets Assad's departure from power sometime in March of 2017. Is that the projection?
No, it's not. I'm aware of the AP story. I'm aware of the document upon which it was based. It was a preliminary pre-decisional document, a working level, staff level document that sort of laid out a potential way forward for the political process, but it's just that. It's preliminary, pre-decisional. Those kinds of papers, that kind of work is done here at the State Department all the time. You'd expect it would be. What hasn't changed is the essential key milestones or mileposts in the process that the ISSG has agreed to, which is 6 months after the beginning of negotiations with the Assad regime, which we hope and expect will be beginning at the end of this month. So 6 months after that begins, that you get to a process then of starting to draft a constitution, and then that roughly is expected, again, targeted to take about a year, and then 6 months after that to get to elections. So a lot of it depends on the math, when things start and how they go. And all these are targets. I mean, nobody can today predict with perfect certainty and specificity what month of what year all these things are going to happen. What we can say is that our hope and expectation is that that entire 18-month process will start this month, at the end of this month.
Just to clarify, what is...
So you just confirmed that.
He's going to stick around.
No.
18 months.
Are your arms a little tired? The straw men you put up to knock down were great. Of course, this is a pre-decisional document because you're not the ones who are making the decisions. The document is accurate, right? I mean, it's not a forgery.
I'm not disputing the validity of the document, but it is a working level staff level document.
Yeah,
But to
okay.
say with certainty.
Hold on. And I don't think the report said anything with certainty. It just said that this is a U.S. view of it. Was the document prepared by someone who doesn't have a clue about what the UN-backed process is and doesn't have a clue? It was prepared by someone who knows what's going on, at least I would hope, because it was prepared as a guide for how things could progress in the UN-backed process.
Yep, exactly.
Does it not
but that
call
is not
for,
necessarily the impression that the story leaves the reader, which is that the Obama administration believes that there's no March 17 is it.
No, it doesn't. In fact, the story doesn't say that. It says it foresees.
But you just articulated it much better. That it is
the way I articulated it is exactly the way the story reads.
Okay,
and if
well,
people
we'll
take
go back
exception,
and look and we can see.
Sure. Okay.
So March 2017 is the best case scenario for the U.S. Is that the projection here?
It's not a projection. It's a possible outcome here. It is a working level staff document that was meant to sort of put on paper some preliminary thoughts about what, in space and time, what that process could look like. But I don't think, so yes, did the paper estimate that March of 17 could be the time for elections? Yes, it did, but that doesn't mean...
the time for elections.
No, August.
That doesn't mean that... I'm sorry. It doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen.
Would you like Assad to step down right now?
What we would like is for... Yeah, look, we've long said that Assad needs to go. And we've long said that he's lost legitimacy to govern.
You have long said Assad must go, but now the call seems to be Assad must go sometime later, not right now. Why not now?
For more than a year and a half now, Secretary Kerry has said that the exact timing of his departure, and I can go find you the quotes from 18 months ago, the exact timing of his departure isn't something that we're fixated on at a particular point in time. That he needs to go. Doesn't mean that he's going to go on day one, week one, month one. It doesn't. We don't know that yet. It doesn't. We don't know that yet. That's why it's important to get through this political transition, to get through this process, to let the Vienna process work its way forward. We know there's differences of opinion in the international community about how long he should stay, that he should stay or not, and what role he'll play in any kind of transition. I don't know the answer to what that's going to look like right now.
Is
What I
that-
can tell you is that the United States supports keeping the international community at the table to discuss those exact issues.
Is that just a matter of differences of opinion? Are you concerned that if he went right now, there would be a power vacuum that could help ISIL and other extremists?
I think what we want to see is a transition that allows for the preservation of the key institutions of government so that there isn't a collapse. The Secretary's talked about that, that as we work through the transition, one of the things that we want to make sure is that key functions of the government can continue, obviously under, solid, responsible leadership, but that some institutions need to be preserved so that there isn't a collapse. I think certainly we share concerns by others in the international community that you don't want a vacuum. You don't want such a precipitous fall that we've learned a hard lesson in our own history recently about this. You don't want such a precipitous fall that you cannot provide basic functions of government for the Syrian people. The whole goal here is to get at a government that's responsible to them. So I can't tell you what that's going to look like or what that should look like. But that's why it's important for the Vienna process to go. And that's why we have been, our position throughout this process here, over the summer and into the fall, is to continue to get all the players at the table, knowing they all have differences of opinion, to kind of hash that out.
I understand you clearly on what you just said, John. Very quickly, you like to see Assad go, but that you don't. You like to see also the government and the institutions stay in place. Correct?
We want a government in Syria that is responsible and responsible for and responsive to the needs of the Syrian people. We want a government in Syria that Syrians have had a hand in making and in preserving. We want to see Syria whole, unified, non-sectarian, and free of terrorism, obviously. And lastly, we continue to believe Assad can't be part of the future of Syria. That he has to go.
Right.
Now, there's a lot. That's a lot to want, right? And getting there, if you're going to do it credibly, in a way that can be sustained, means that it can't just be any one nation's view. It has to be. You have to have a consensus. You have to make compromises to get there, because there's a lot of players, a lot of people with influence, and not all of them feel the same way. Not just about Assad, but about democracy in Syria, or about the institutions of government.
But the army being the backbone of the state so far since the creation of Syria, you would like to see that continue on. You don't want to see the collapse
we
of
believe
the
that
state.
there obviously needs to be core to preserving government functions and safety and security of the Syrian people, that you're going to need security forces, clearly. The army is the biggest security force in Syria, so you've heard the Secretary talk about the fact that, a complete, utter disbanding of the army is probably not the smartest thing to do. How do you preserve, though, an army, a security force in Syria that behaves appropriately towards the safety and security of their people and has the country's best interests at heart? I mean, that's what you got to get at. And so how's it going to be led? How's it going to be resourced? How's it going to be trained? All that stuff is stuff that needs to be worked out. There's an awful lot of work to do. I got time for just one more.
Okay, can I just ask you, are you aware of any revisions that have been made to the timeline that's outlined in that document?
I'm not. But
Thank
again,
you.
Matt,
No,
this
thanks.
was not.
You can call it whatever
analysis.
you want.
It wasn't a projection. It was a
In
staff
fact,
level working
In
document.
fact, it was a projection, whether you want to call it staff level,
It does not
working,
represent
whatever.
official U.S. policy.
No, it reflects what what
It
is
reflects
a
what-
logical progression of how the UN process will go
By
by this administration.
by a staffer here at the State Department at a staff level.
Who knows something about what's going on, right?
Well, we
You wouldn't
generally,
assign this
we
to
generally
someone-
assign papers here at the State Department to people that know something about them.
Right,
So I can
okay.
tell you, I did not write this one.